Epithet Erased, an animated adaptation of a homebrew tabletop role-playing game that's budget really makes it look like it. Released in 2019 on everyone's favorite streaming platform, Verve. You all remember Verve, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Anywho, it was made by YouTuber Jello Apocalypse, who wanted to do a touch more than most DMs would do for their finished games, and provide a proper, animated adaptation. And as a fan of his, and tabletop role-playing games in general, I gave it a watch shortly after release, and it has quickly become a favorite for me to revisit again and again, even with its shortcomings. When I first started watching this show in early 2020, I thought, oh, Jello made a series. I can't wait to see what goofy shenanigans these characters get into. And was sucker punched by a series with goofy shenanigans with an astonishingly good emotional core. And with its sequel coming out soon, I decided to do a rewatch of one of my favorite web series again, and thought a video on it might be fun. And due to IRL shit and a little writer's block, the Volume 1 video is still in rough shape, so I could really use something to fill the gap. And hey, let's be talking about a series I actually enjoy this time, so you know, I'll take it. But anyway, let's dive right in. Honestly, one of Epithet's greatest strength is its characters. We have himbo extraordinaire Indus, cocky child psychiatrist Sylvie, wholesome soup boy Giovanni, Stink, and of course, one of the first arc's standout characters, Miss Molly Wally Doodle All the Day Blind Deaf. Yes, that is her real, full, official name. Why do you do this to me, Jello? Naming aside, I want to take a look at her development throughout the museum arc, as I think it's really well done. Now, when I was originally planning on talking about this, I didn't think I'd have much to touch on in episode 1. I didn't remember it having much for development, and honestly, it's kind of the most forgettable of the season. However, there was one scene in particular that I hadn't remembered till I went back to rewatch. That being, the night shift scene. During this scene, after enjoyment was had at the tour, Martin, Dad of the Year, informs Molly that she'll be working the night shift. Again, for the third day in a row. As the horror of this sets in, the overall upbeat, cheerful tone we had through the episode at this point is shattered, as all music cuts out for a full 10 seconds, leaving Molly, and us the audience, to stew in the misfortune of having another night taken by work. While she attempts to reason with her father, he unfortunately has the emotional intelligence of a brick wall, and is far more interested in playing phone games, rather than being a responsible and functioning adult. Honestly, the scene is a really good tone setter for the rest of the arc, from setting up literal worst boy Martin and Molly's issues. And the part that really surprised me was the sound design, and how it really enhances the scene. I didn't just mention that 10 seconds without music for kicks. You can really feel that, though you may not notice it at first.
Isn't this exciting, Molly? Woo! Hold on to that energy. You're gonna need it for the night shift.
What? But you said you'd be home tonight. I ran the store yesterday, and the day before that. I was gonna catch up on homework.
Aw, come on.
As the nice, comforting track cuts out, you get a little feeling of that cold isolation that Molly gets in the moment. And all of that was a 10 to 30 second scene that did a great job setting up this arc. Then of course we have the real meat in episode 2, starting with the heart-to-heart with Molly and Giovanni. After properly equipping Sergeant Bear with official bonsai merchandise, and Molly commenting on the perfectly legitimate operations of the blasters, Molly explains to Giovanni her situation, talking about her mother's passing, how her sister and father haven't really moved on, and how all of the responsibility has fallen on her, a 12-year-old. But as she goes on about this, her main concern is whether or not they'll be upset with her for missing the shift. And Giovanni's response is really surprising.
You're kind of a pushover, aren't you, Bear Trap?
In this circumstances, I think most characters would offer kind and compassionate reassurances. But Soup Boy don't hold back. He just calls it like he sees it. And even after apologizing, he reiterates that she's letting people walk all over her. Giovanni tells Molly that she can't just let people do that she is as important as anyone else. And her reactions is equal parts wholesome and sad.
Really?
Yeah, you're my minion now. All my minions are important. I can't have...
You can hear it in the delivery. The thought that she was as important as any other person was something so alien to her, it never crossed her mind. And the only reason the concept stuck was because Giovanni threw it in her face like a bowl of hot chicken noodle. It's honestly astonishing how well this scene utilizes Giovanni. While a lot of other characters would attempt to soften their approach, the Soup Boy makes no such attempts. He just goes. He knows his
Minion boy!
is letting her family and even complete strangers take advantage of her. She is fully willing to give her epithet to Mara, and even well before she knew about the chronic pain it comes with. She's just willing to part with it on the premise of...
And it sounds like she really wants it, so...
What do you mean it sounds like she wants it? What's wrong with you?
And as a good and vile and cruel supervillain, he isn't going to let his minion take this injustice. Without his forward, in-your-face honesty, I don't think Molly would have made any real steps towards change, as it seems like she wants to avoid causing any inconveniences, never wanting to rock the boat, even to her own detriment, as seen with Mara. But after that swift kick to the ass, Molly promises that she'll try and be more assertive, though it proves easier said than done. While it isn't really in the vein of being assertive and standing for herself, I did want to touch upon the fight with Sylvie, as I think it has some very interesting aspects, not directly to Molly's arc, but to Giovanni's role in it. When nightmare fuel is used, the fire begins to surround Molly, and she shuts down. Seeing this, Giovanni drops his typical bombastic, villainous speech and risks using a technique he's never used with two people, simply to ensure Molly is safe and secure. Well, for Molly, this is more about her trauma and isn't really about her confidence. It really shows how much Giovanni is willing to go for his underlings. And both of these things unite in one beautiful scene. After Indus informs the party that they've found the amulet, he asks Molly to go to Mara so she can take her epithet. Though Molly is clearly uncomfortable, sounding incredibly anxious during the whole conversation. But once Indus insists about keeping Mara waiting, the precious cosmic brownie, again not wanting to be disruptive, concedes, and decides to go with Indus. She was only stopped because Giovanni stepped in to stand up to Indus. Well, Giovanni said he wanted Molly to stand for herself. As with Sylvie, he is willing to stand for her when she won't, or even can't. Though the Chowderhead meant well, he does get walloped for stepping in. And in one shot nonetheless. And finally, after all of that, of not being able to stand for herself, for others having to step in for her, and even suffer for it, Molly finally stands up for herself.
Lady Mara is waiting.
Because I don't wanna! Giovanni... Boss stood up for me. He got hurt for me. And he says I should stand up for myself. I don't want to have my epithet taken away.
But you must! Lady Mara needs it!
I'm sorry, but I need it too! Molly
And it's not just that. We see Molly stand up for herself twice more before the season is up. She does it with Giovanni when it comes to Sylvie's epithet. Though, based on the scene, I don't think Giovanni was going to keep it. I think he just wanted to give Molly a chance to be more assertive. And we see it at the end, where she decides that sleep is more important than running the store instead of Father of the Year, and decides...
You know what? No. Flip. I'm going to bed.
And with that, we end Molly's development during this arc. And it's honestly one of the best elements of the show. We see her go from sad, overworked pushover to sad, overworked person who can stand up for herself? Improvement? And all because of the positive force of the evil Soup Boy, and his surprisingly wholesome outlook on his minions. And while I love a lot about this series, from its humor to its power system, I doubt the series would be good as it is without this. The astonishingly wholesome relationship of the minion Bear Trap and her boss Giovanni, and how a little positivity can go a long way. And that is a little Epithet video. You may have noticed that I barely at all touched on the Western arc. That's not because I don't have anything to say. In fact, half of the script was supposed to be about the Western arc. But I wanted to get something out before the end of the year to prove that I am not dead.
Are you sure about that?
Since, my last upload was in August. But don't you worry, that second Epithet video is coming soon, and once that's done, we're going to charge ahead to Volume 1. But for right now, take it easy, and, oh yeah, and buy Prison of Plastic.